Unleashed is brought to you by Scott Diamond, your State Farm Insurance Agent, Pizza Villa in DeKalb, Elder Care Services of DeKalb County, The Junction Eating Place in DeKalb, and my insurance guy, Mike DeVito in Sycamore. And welcome into TD Ryan podcast number 15, when we talk with our friends from the DeKalb County History Center. And speaking of which, we have Michelle Donahoe, who I always tease was the curator, or whatever exactly title, the executive director is the proper term, of the DeKalb County History Center. Michelle, how are you doing this morning?
Very well, thank you.
Great to see you. Of course, you used to be the Sycamore History Center, and now we interviewed you way back then, right? And now you've evolved to the DeKalb County History Center.
Right. So we changed our name in 2018 after conversations with lots of history groups throughout the county. And it was just a need for some kind of coordination and collaboration and just capacity building. You know, how can we all work together? So we changed our name and became the DeKalb County History Center, and the Joiner History Room that was over at the library and only open a couple days a week is now at the History Center, and we're open from Tuesday through Friday from 10 to 4 and on Saturdays from 12 to 3. So many more chances for people to come and learn about their local history.
And see Michelle's cool turquoise glasses that we just noticed that she's wearing. Also, we're going to talk about other stuff, but let's meet, who'd you bring with you? You brought Carolyn Menser with you. Tell us about who Carolyn is.
So Caroline, I'm sorry. That's right.
Give me an opportunity to mess up a name, I'll do it.
So she just started with us at the beginning of May. She is a Sycamore High School graduate, an NIU graduate, and she is getting her master's. So we are just thrilled to have her be part of our team, and she is going to be responsible for all of our communication and development work.
So you had to just kind of settle on, just take whoever came along.
Yeah.
Caroline, I kid, we go way back. But Caroline, tell us about this. What's your love of history? Why do you want to get involved with history?
Yeah, so I've grown up in this community. I graduated from Sycamore High School. I've lived here my entire life. And so when this opportunity came about, I love serving my community and working for my community, and any way that I can be more connected and feel more connected is just a blessing to me. And so not many 22-year-olds would say that they love their community as much as I do and wouldn't see themselves any other place. So when this opportunity came along to learn more about the history of my community, but also serve my community and connect more with my community, I mean, I can't pass an opportunity up.
All right, we're going to quiz you as you go along, all right, Caroline? What do you know about the Kishwaukee River and people living in this area in the Kishwaukee River? Is there any kind of folklore that you might know about that?
I don't know much about that, but I've heard some.
Michelle, a chance to see.
Okay, so the local lore is if you put your toe in the Kishwaukee River, you will never leave the area.
Or if you go away, you'll come back.
You'll go away or come back, yeah.
So Caroline, did you go away at one point? Or did you...
No, I've been here. But I can say I probably at one point have stuck my toe in the Kishwaukee River.
There you go.
So,
all right.
Well, you went away for the first year of college and came back, right?
Oh, yeah, I did. I transferred back to NIU. I went to Illinois State for 1 year and transferred back to NIU.
There you go.
There you go.
You're right.
Well, we are glad to have you here, I'll tell you, but there are more questions to follow. Now, I didn't know, Michelle, that you are the DeKalb County historian since 2020. Now, was that Sue Breeze? I didn't look it up. Is that who you replaced, or who was the historian before that?
Yeah, it was Sue, and it's...
Give us a short answer, but what does that entail? What are you, you're the poet laureate? Or
Yeah, it's a really glamorous position. No. It's a county position, so it is appointed, and I'm just... it's an honor that not only to be recognized, but that the county sees that it's an important position to have.
Yes.
That our history is important, and we have a great relationship with all the different departments at the county level in a variety of different ways. The highway department comes and, has questions about, why was it named something like this. The human resources department has called and asked, for pictures of people that had worked at the county. We keep records for the Regional Office of Education. So we are maybe not the first thing that people think of with DeKalb County government, but they do recognize us as being, important in doing their jobs and being a great resource.
What a thrill it must be when they ask you for something, you can lay your hands on that and give it to them. That must really be something.
It really is. And, people are genuinely surprised. Like, okay, I've got a random question for you. I don't know if you have anything like this. And oh yeah, come on over. We've got usually a couple things, for you to choose from. And if we don't have something, it's like, you know what? we're going to keep digging, and we might have somebody we can call, or, it's hard for us to say, no, we don't have anything and be a dead end. We always like to say, well, check here, or we'll make a few phone calls. So we always try to do some problem solving with those research questions.
We have to brag on you a little bit, because I didn't know until I was looking this up that you worked at the Chicago Art Institute, right? Now, that's the A+, that's the World Series, right? Tell us about that. What was it like working there?
Yeah, so that was one of where my career started. It was right after graduate school. I worked with their education department, and that's my background, is museum education. And I was partnered up with Chicago Public Schools that had WPA murals in there. So that's the Work Progress Administration, 1930s.
The Roosevelt administration, right? You're putting us back to work?
Yes. Yes. And so they hired artists to work in public schools to create artwork. And
is that right?
Yeah. And there's some amazing works of art. And my job was to help teachers include those murals into their curriculum. And it was, this may ring a bell for you, but it was funded by the Polk Brothers Foundation. Right. So there's a historic word for you. And it was an amazing opportunity. I was there. It was part-time, but it also made me kind of realize what my true passion was, because I was doing that, and I was micro-focused on this job. Like at my lunch break, I could go walk through and see the exhibits and see Monet that was on display there, and that was incredible. But I was also
pronounced Monet, by the way.
And I was also working out in Geneva at their local historical society. And while not as glamorous as the Art Institute, and I, again, professional development resources, they had those. We did great things, but I only had one very specific task to do while I was there. And then the local history field, you get to do a little bit of everything. Which is good most of the time. Some days it's a little overwhelming, but
it's like working at a small radio station where you literally have to do everything, as opposed to a big one where everybody's got separate departments.
Exactly. And then when we have people, either students learning about the history field or interns, it's like, you're going to see small and large, it's the same skill set that you need, but it's just scale. So, I take out the garbage, I clean up the floor, I do weeding, and then I also plan big fundraisers. So
Caroline, does she do windows? Does she do windows as well?
Yeah.
All hands on deck there.
All right, so you started out big and then you went smaller, not calling DeKalb County History smaller, but now Caroline, you're starting smaller. Did you want to go to somewhere like the Art Institute or somewhere bigger and then work your way down?
I never really saw myself in local history or local museums, to be honest. I always saw myself in local government, to be honest.
Okay, well, there's still room for that.
Well, I started off in local government. I just graduated with my bachelor's in May from NIU, and I started an internship in local government. And once I started working there, I realized that it wasn't where I necessarily wanted to be. My heart was always in the nonprofit field.
Okay.
That's where I had worked before. That's where my heart was set. And so I knew I needed to come back to the nonprofit field. And the museum wasn't somewhere that I necessarily thought I was going to be, but now that I'm here, I absolutely love it. And I love telling the story of DeKalb County and helping others learn more about how amazing it is.
All right, well, let's talk about DeKalb County. Here's quiz number one. And
Oh, gosh.
I'll tell you what, I've lived in DeKalb for 25 years. I always heard of Baron Johann DeKalb, but I knew he was born in Germany, but I didn't realize he fought for the French, right? He fought for the French. And here's some cool stuff that I got from the DeKalb County History Center. Look up their website. He was a spy, clandestinely observing the temperament of colonists. He was arrested on suspicion of spying and was released for lack of evidence. So our namesake, DeKalb here, was a spy at one point during the French and Indian Wars. And then he met Lafayette, and Lafayette persuaded him to come here to America to fight for America. He spent the 1 year in Valley Forge. I didn't know that.
He is a very well-known Revolutionary War hero, yes.
Really? Okay. I thought we were just a little token, here in DeKalb, but he was the real deal, wasn't he? Yeah. And then he fought side by side with Lafayette. I think that is so cool. And then at one point, they were being attacked. DeKalb attempted to rally his troops in the midst of confusion, but was unhorsed. I love that term. I hate it when I'm unhorsed. So painful. And gravely wounded 11 times, mostly by bayonets. And he lived for another couple days after that. So the guy certainly deserves to be named, or our city to be named after him. And here's a quote from him. His love of liberty induced him to leave the old world to aid the citizens of the new world. So how great is that?
That's beautiful.
My grandson had a little pocket biography of Lafayette. I never knew anything about Lafayette, and boy, those little biographies are great.
Aren't they fun?
I feel like I know them. I read about a 12-page book, but it really helped.
And you listen to Hamilton, and you're singing his name, going Lafayette.
Now I see your master's was in public history. Is that right, Michelle? What does that mean, public history, when you say that?
So that is doing history outside the traditional classroom setting. So when you study history, usually it's, to be a college professor or a high school social studies teacher. And I knew I didn't want to do that. I knew I didn't want to get into law. And then at Loyola, they have a public history program. Like, well, what's this? And it's like just working out in more public spaces. So working for the National Park Service, working in an archives is also considered public history, in that you're helping people do research, and then doing museum education. So that's really what piqued my interest, and Loyola's program was pretty broad, so I got a little bit of everything. And I am very proud to say that I, use my history degree pretty much every day. I don't know if there's a lot of history majors that can say that, but it is. It's something where I get to, like say, share those stories and get people excited about where they live. And that's really what I see local history is, as community building. Like, if you know your stories of your community, you're going to feel more attached. You're going to, be a little bit more invested, maybe want to volunteer in, even if it's, helping out on one service day a year or something like that. But that's really how I see the value of local history, is not just names and dates and when was the first log cabin built here. I mean, that's important to know, but it's also like, just, you're part of our history. You don't have to be here for 5 generations. You're a part of our community. You're contributing, and you're making it the place where people want to live and work.
Oh, very good. Well, I like that. And of course, the big question is, did you get one of those scarves, one of those Rambler scarves, when you were going to Loyola?
I sure did. Cool. I even knew, Sister Jean was around when I was there.
Okay. All right, Caroline, here's your second quiz now. It's what did Sycamore used to be called, and who was the first, now I gave you a hint earlier, so who was the first settler in Sycamore? First, permanent resident of Sycamore?
Oh, gosh.
Was it called Sycamore then?
I'm assuming no.
I'm easy, I know. Put that on the spot there, but Michelle, I got a chance to steal.
All right, here we go. So Sycamore's first name was Orange.
Orange, right?
And our educated guess on that is because there were a lot of Osage orange trees in the area, and that wood was used to create fences to show where your property line was.
Orange, you glad they didn't keep that name? But why don't we have any more oranges around? What happened to all the orange trees?
So they're not orange, it's Osage orange. So those grow in some of the forest preserves around here.
Oh.
And they're really cool fruits that are in the fall. They kind of look like the tennis balls, or like little brains.
Okay.
So Southeast School, I think, they have a walking trail near there, and they have some. And then also, I think, out by Russell Woods. And they sometimes even sell them in grocery stores as a way you put those fruits out there, and it'll keep away spiders in your house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Keeps away spiders.
Keeps away spiders, yeah.
Right.
Osage orange, I think it's technically called a fruit. I mean, you don't eat it, but it's.
Oh, you don't eat it, though?
You don't eat it. It's almost like grapefruit size.
Well, you calling it little brains. I had a reluctance to be snacking on little brains. That's good.
So, and I believe we weren't able to keep the name Orange because there was already a town in Illinois that had the name Orange, and you can't have 2 towns with the same name in the same state, or, that's just really going to confuse the mail.
Wow. Remember in school when you had the essay question and there was always a smart kid who wrote 3 paragraphs of the answer? That was a good answer.
Well, you told me we have 3 hours for the podcast. I was trying to help you out.
No, I want to talk about all the agencies you've brought together, because I have your director of local history organizations. And I didn't realize how many local histories we have. I mean, just to give a couple here, the Blackwell History, tell me this one, the Blackwell History of Education Museum and Meelan Township one-room school. So it's all kind of combined there, huh?
Yeah, so that's at NIU. They have a one-room school that was brought from Milan Township, and that's like one of the parts of the county that there is not a whole lot there in that area. And so they moved that up to NIU's campus, and they have an amazing collection about the history of education. So theirs is not necessarily local, but they had an exhibit a couple of years ago about Dick and Jane books, and it was so fun and so well done. So that's their focus, and they build upon, working.
Did you see Jane run? Did you see Jane?
There you go.
But you never know what unique thing would put a spotlight on town like that. Huh?
Well, and that's it. And that's our goal, is to help people find places that they don't know exist. And so we've got this directory, and again, we have with some of our all of our exhibits, a list of the different partner groups. So with our food exhibit, we have companion pieces throughout the county. So come and see us, but then go learn more at all these other places.
Now, my sister-in-law has a little museum. Well, not her. She helps run it in New Glarus, and it's set up like an old-time drugstore. So they got the soda fountain, the little fountain and everything, and all the old products, which are fascinating that they have. But they're only open a couple days a week because they don't have people to. So that's what you're doing here. You're kind of combining these smaller museums so people have a better opportunity to see them, right? Or at least to learn more about.
Right, exactly. We are not going to be the experts in Waterman history. You're going to go to the Waterman Area Heritage Society to go learn
so you got
about
that without
Waterman.
notes.
Yeah. But we have a museum day every October, so people can get together and, what are some of your challenges? How can we work together? And then they have a companion piece for the food exhibit. So, we try to, again, when we first opened, and I think we've talked about this before, people were a little worried, like, oh, the History Center, they want to take all of our stuff. And actually, it's the opposite. We want them to be thriving and sustainable because we don't have enough room. And again, we're not the experts in all the different community histories. The people that live in those towns are the experts. And how can we build them up and make them better at what they do? And it's people that are passionate about local history, but most of them are all volunteer. There's very few that have paid staff, and so they're
docents. We learned the term docent.
Yes, docents. Those are the people that are going to give you the tours, and how can we get a few more docents in these area museums? And you got to sometimes be available between 1 and 3 on a Monday. But again, if you don't know they're around, now you know, and maybe you have some free time. You're recently retired. Let's go support your local community history group.
What, are you trying to get me?
No.
Caroline, tell us about it. Do you have time to hit some of these? We also have the DeKalb Area Women's Center. Agriculture is such a big thing in this area. DeKalb Area Agricultural Historical Association, Elwood House Museum, the Hinckley Historical Society. That's just one page. Joseph F. Glidden Homestead and Historical Center, Kirkland Historical Study. Have you had a chance to go to some of these small?
Yeah, last month we took our board to the Hinckley Historical Museum actually, and we were able to visit there. I learned a lot about the Harlem Globetrotters.
Oh, okay.
The first tour stop that they had there. They have a.
Isn't it amazing? That's their limelight. That's where they got it, and it's like a national limelight.
Yeah, they have a lot of Globetrotters memorabilia in there featuring that. I also saw, it was a lot of military uniforms that they have there, as well as a lot of school uniforms, like through the decades, the school uniforms,
okay.
The things that, the high school students would wear. And so, there's a lot of really cool things in there that I didn't know about. I don't know that much about Hinckley, to be honest. So it was awesome to learn more, especially from the people that, helped put that museum together and helped come up with these archival pieces. And
realizing the importance of it, here in DeKalb, I don't know if you know, we almost lost the Egyptian theater in the 1970s. Yep. I mean, Thank God somebody had the foresight to realize this is a gem, we can't let this go. But you need to have people like that, don't you?
Yeah, and they really have done an amazing job at Hinckley. Their displays are just beautiful. Like again, you never know who lives in your community. I think there was someone that used to work at Marshall Fields and do their windows, help come and do their displays.
Oh,
I think a couple people flew in that were friends of her from out of town to help do them. I mean, it's just fabulous when you hear these stories. But
isn't it amazing when people mention like that? Oh, and by the way, I used to do the windows on at Marshall Fields. Like,
see that too, right? But they also have that amazing mural in downtown Hinckley on South Moon Barbecue's wall. And so they talk about how that was put together in the Historical Society as well. And they've got bands coming throughout the summer performing, and those are all sponsored by the Hinckley Historical Society. So, there's so many different opportunities that you just have no idea sometimes that are going on. And so we really try to do a good job on our website. If you scroll all the way down, we've got our upcoming events, and we include those events of other places too. It's not just what we're doing. So it's kind of one-stop shopping for all the history fans out there.
I don't know if you saw in the Resource magazine, there's a couple that went around to take pictures of all the courthouses in every county in Illinois.
Wow.
And Caroline, next question, how many counties are there in the state of Illinois?
In the state of Illinois?
Yes.
I'm going to guess I'm gonna
That's
say
not fair. She didn't know what to study for the test.
48.
Michelle, chance to steal.
Oh,
It's more than that.
Oh,
142.
No, you're right there, 102.
Oh, that's what I meant.
But this couple went around and took a picture of every courthouse in every county in Illinois. Isn't that cool? And then they went back and said, we're going to find something cool to do in each county. And I suggest we all do that. I think it's a great idea. We got 102 counties in Illinois. Go to each county and do something fun.
There you go. So those that are looking for something fun to do in DeKalb County, we've got our app out and about DeKalb
Look at that segue.
County.
Boy, right? Look at that business. Beautiful. Tell us about the app. Yeah.
So it is. It just tells you about all of these really cool places around our county. So it's everything from forest preserves to history places to just some local monuments. And there's photos, there's audio, there's some videos. We make it really easy. But there's a clip from when John F. Kennedy was at the Egyptian. There's like a 30-second clip with that. There's a
I enjoyed my time here at the Egyptian Theater.
and he makes a joke.
I want to thank Michelle.
Makes a joke too because it was pretty much a solid Republican area. He's like, you're probably not, expecting to hear a Democrat here in DeKalb County. And
Was that the joke, or do you remember what the joke was?
It was something. You'll have to listen to the app. It's something along those lines, though. But he does, kind of make fun of himself coming out to this area then. But then there's also this area. And I forget which forest preserve it is. I think it's in the southern part of the county, but it has never been developed. It has been prairie since forever. It has never been developed. So it's like really cool to think about. Like this has never been someone's farm. This is, this has always been dedicated prairie. And then there's also a forest preserve that used to be a golf course. And so we've got those stories too. So
I love it.
Yeah, it's a great summer activity. Especially if you maybe have like a 15-year-old with a driver's permit in your house. You're looking for places to go drive and explore.
Perfect. And it's safer as you go out to the boonies.
Exactly. And that we might have done that ourselves in our house. So it was a fun way to, where can we go and get some driving time in? So it's a great option to explore.
And Caroline, as you came to work for the DeKalb County History Center, I'm sure you spent a lot of time on the website, and I just recently have, and it's very modern, isn't it? I mean, you think it'd be very dry, and here's a picture of this old thing here, but you keep it nice and light, don't you? There's some videos in there, and I love it when the kids interview other people as well.
Oh yeah. We try to keep our website as clean and polished as we possibly can. It takes a lot of work. To keep it the way it is, but we try to keep it as updated as we can as well. Always putting new events in there, always putting new information in there to keep people updated and keep people excited about what's happening at their country.
And if they want to search from some old thing, they just get a search engine there, right? And they can look for that and see what you have in your collection, which is an amazing collection. I want to mention also too, because we're going to talk to the Sycamore Police Chief here coming up soon about the new fire station. Of course, there's doing one here in DeKalb as well. So there's the Sycamore Fire Preservation Company, right? Tell us about that, Michelle. They have the old 1920s fire truck, right?
They have the 1923 Stutz, yep, and it's stored out in the garage out at the History Center's property. They're their own nonprofit. We're just working with them, so they have a place to have, a home for that fire
truck. So where is
truck.
that fire truck now?
It's at the History Center, but
it's
not for public viewing. Like they have it stored in the garage and then they'll pull it out for parades and different things like that. So they just come out there, but that's where it's stored. And I don't know if they were out in last year's Pumpkin Fest parade, but
it was.
Yeah.
All right, that's great.
Yeah.
All right, Caroline, let's talk about the expansion now here. You guys, this is from the Chronicle. DeKalb County History Center breaks ground on an expansion. Tell us about that. $1.8 million. I know, Michelle, you were very instrumental in raising that money. But tell us about that. What are we gonna have here on this expansion?
Yeah. So we're very excited for that. We broke ground in May, and since May, we've had construction out there every day working on our corn crib. We're working to restore our corn crib currently and make it
Say that 3 times. Corn crib.
I know.
Now, you trying to make the corn crib look like what? What is the corn crib going to look like? Is that?
So I guess I'll jump in here.
Yeah.
So it's we don't know the exact age of the corn crib, but it's about 100 years old, and it was when the.
Now explain the corn crib for we city folks.
Yeah. So we'll start at the very basics. All the corn you see is not sweet corn. It is feed corn for the animals, right?
Majority of it is, right?
Yes. Yeah. And so that's what corn cribs were used. They would hold the corn that you were going to use for feed, and how you can tell the difference between a corn crib and a barn is the corn crib has the open slats to keep the airflow going so the corn wouldn't get moldy.
Okay.
And while we we think this is one of the largest corn cribs in DeKalb County. We're not a working farm anymore, right? But these corn cribs are falling down all over. There's one on Salmonock that I've been watching all summer, and it's just with these big windstorms we've been having, it's like, oh my gosh, it is just, it's going to be rubble here soon. But in the next 25 to 50 years, you're really not going to see them because people don't use them anymore. So our board really wanted to preserve this corn crib to be able to tell that part of our agricultural history. But at the same time, we're not going to put all this money into a building we can't use. So the idea was to turn it into a programming space. And so it is going to be restored.
I think you got to get it structurally safe.
Right. So it has good bones, but we're not going to have it made for airflow because we're going to have technology in there, right? And that's really good for the mice and the other critters to come in, which are not going to be really friendly.
My wife just had to have her car fixed. The squirrels ate the wiring inside the car. So don't get me started.
That soybean stuff, I'm familiar.
Because it's made out of soybean. Yes.
So we are going to... it's going to be a combination of preserving parts of the corn and stabilizing the exterior, but making a modern programming space. So if you drive by on Route 23 now, you can see the side of it is open, and that's going to be our stage. So we're going to have music, we're going to have living history presentations, education. It also has a classroom area. We have a state of Illinois grant to help fund this. So that was for $500,000, and we have to match it.
Okay, yes, right.
And then we still have above and beyond that. The other piece too is, and we talked about this before as well, is that there was a house on the property that's been sitting vacant since we built our new facility in 2019. And that we worked with Habitat for Humanity to move. So that's getting ready to open here. I think they're going to have the house blessing in a couple weeks. So right now that's an empty foundation. We're going to fill that in, and there's going to be a pavilion that reflects the structure of that original house. So we can talk about what that house was used for. That's where the seasonal workers were.
Okay.
And we also have gardens out there. We work with the master gardeners. Traditionally, they raise like 2,000 pounds of food for the food pantries. But that's our seating area, the way this is set up. So we're moving that closer to Route 23. That's phase one. And phase two will have some walking paths, some interpretive signs. So again, we can continue to tell that story of agriculture in DeKalb County. So it's a lot going on.
Yeah.
The DeKalb County Community Foundation was also a major supporter. So to have the state and county level support. If anyone wants to donate, just let me know. We're still doing fundraising on that. We're at like 1.6 million that we have committed to the project, so I still have some work to do.
Carolyn, how can we do that? How can we help out if we want to help out?
Yeah, go to our website. We have a place where you can donate to the History Museum itself, or just give us a call.
Okay.
Yeah, we're open until 4 p.m. every day but Sundays and Mondays. So we're there, and yeah, give us a call. And,
okay. And we should point out it's a tax write-off, so if you're really looking for that, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
An opportunity for a tax write-off. Well, we call this a segue in the business because I wanted to ask you guys about the logo here, of course, the DeKalb famous, and it's a part of if I gave you one of our cards, it's actually on our logo, our card as well. But the late, great Chuck Seabrass, I don't know if you knew Chuck, used to be here at had our newspaper here the midweek, and then, of course, he was part of the DeKalb Chamber of Commerce. But he was over there in Vietnam during the war. And he's going out there in the fields, and he sees the DeKalb logo sign. And he tells the story. It's a much longer story, but just that moment, I get goosebumps just hearing about it, because Chuck said it just brought him back to DeKalb, and here he is in Vietnam fighting with, and he was a paramedic, so you can imagine the stuff he saw. But that sign, just that moment, brought him back, and just the power of that. Tell us about that. Started in 1936, I guess. And again, I wouldn't expect you to know everything about everything, Michelle. But I know this was during the Depression, obviously, and this new hybrid corn seed was going to help farmers stay alive and not go bankrupt. I mean,
it was, and this was, the beginning of hybrid corn. This was what really changed how farming was done. It was you could have a higher yield because of this hybrid corn, and it's interesting. Like the logo has its own life of its own,
right?
And it's that you can see it everywhere
still today,
and they were just. So I think there's that combination of the innovation and the science and the technology behind it, but also that innovation of marketing. Like there are not that many logos that are identifiable like that flying.
It's like the Nike
corn.
swoosh. It is.
It really is. And So in our previous exhibit, the history of DeKalb County in 100 objects, that was one of the objects, was the flying ear of corn. And it's still, if you want to learn more about it, go down a rabbit hole. It's on our website. Just go under previous exhibits, and we still have that story. But we have a piece that was, I think it was written in Thai, that it was DeKalb, the logo, and then everything was in Thai.
The Taiwanese,
so
really?
Yeah,
wow.
Yeah. So it was it's international, and I have heard that story from not just Chuck. I mean, obviously, so powerful when you're in war and just that connection to home, but people that have been around the world and they see that and they're like, oh my gosh, I'm like, the flying ear, it's followed me, So, it's, and not many places can say they have that visual connection to home. And it's so wonderful to see, and just such a great part of our local history. We have, and our current exhibit right now is about food, and it's called Food Gathering Around the Table. And someone asked, he's like, so do you have the story of DeKalb Ag? I'm like, well, kind of. We have the story of DeKalb Chicks, because we try to rotate things in our exhibits, and we don't always want to tell the same stories. So that's something I have to explain to people, is like, well, yes, we know that's a big part of our local history, but we also have some other really cool things. So we have a really beautiful screen print image of a big chick. It's about, I don't know, like 5 feet by 3 feet poster. So, and they
bigger than it needs to be.
Yes. And and they had the little chicks where the Sycamore Library is today. That's where they had the hatchery. So again, and
that library, actually, they had some chicks. Didn't they do that? Didn't they? I think on their 100th anniversary, didn't they? Have some chicks?
Yeah. So again, all of these crazy parts of our local history that it's so much more than names and dates.
Now, I wanted to ask you about the DeKalb County history in 100 objects. Now, is that still available for people to look at? Because you broke it down into 4 categories, didn't you? Daily life, change, special events, and then government. And some really fascinating stuff. Can you give us an example of each one? Now, what was it like daily life? What was that? Obviously, it was hard.
Yes. Yeah. But the main theme with that was there were some ordinary objects in our collection. Most of the time when people think of items in a museum, they're like from someone super famous, or from some big celebration, or, a state championship, or the Harlem Globetrotters, something like that. But most of us are ordinary people, and those are the things that we connect with. So we had a baseball glove. We had, I'm trying to think. We had a telephone. It's like, oh my God.
Telephones are fascinating.
Yeah. So
I like the old,
Yeah, so it was just ordinary pieces that people have like, oh my gosh, kind of like, and then some people would be like, why is this in a museum? If this is in a museum, that means I'm old,
Well, I collect old radios. I have a small collection, maybe 10 or 12. Caroline, I'm wondering, do you collect anything, something that you find interesting that you have been collecting, some old stuff?
Gosh, my family and my grandpa actually started a collection of stamps, actually.
Okay.
So he was a big stamp collector. So when he passed, we got all of his stamps. My dad inherited all of these stamps, a whole bunch of them. And so lately we have been going through them, and we still have them. We have so many stamps in our house, and it's hard to find a place for all of them because they're just in books and books and books. But yeah, lately I've been wanting to look more into them because I haven't really, they've kind of just been in storage for a while,
right.
And sometimes when you have a collection, you start collecting something and then you kind of forget about it for a while, and then you come back to it and it's something that you're like, oh, I forgot I did that, or oh my gosh, this is so cool, I didn't realize this before. So,
well, and it really ties into because there's so much history with that. I'm immediately thinking the Elvis stamp, the fat Elvis, or the young Elvis, or the heavy Elvis, but there have been so many historic stamps.
Yeah, there are, and just in general, my dad isn't from here. My dad is from New Jersey, but even just my mom's family, working here in general, just learning more about my mom's family history and everything has been very cool. And,
I bet.
Very cool to dive into that. The other week I just did a quick search of their last name, and I found a whole bunch of stuff about, my great grandpa used to own a gas station in Sycamore, and that's what they were known for and everything. And so, used to be the gas station that's now Resource Bank in Sycamore, the old gas station building. So, it's cool to learn about that kind of stuff and just learn about my own family history as well while I'm working there. But yeah, collection-wise, we have so many stamps. We have so many.
So what's the price? What's the one, the big boy? You got one of those from
gosh,
like its own little container and everything?
Yeah, we have a lot of like the prints, like the stamp prints or the big pages with a bunch of them. And we have tons of themes of all these different kinds. So we have like Broadway stars from the 80s. We have Disney. We have different, basketball players and everything. So it's very funny to look through those. I don't know if they're actually worth anything, but yeah, it's very
valuable to you.
Right, it's very cool to see those kinds of stamps.
Well, we call that a segue into this because I was on your website again, go to DeKalbCountyHistory.org, and you have a whole thing on preservation, like her stamp collection. God forbid the humidity gets to that or something like that.
Right.
Do you have ways to teach people how to hold on to stuff that they love, right?
Absolutely. And Rob Glover is our archivist. So if you have questions, he's the one that we usually point to. And we've done classes about how to preserve those family heirlooms. Generally, we just say, if you're comfortable, those family heirlooms will be comfortable. So not an attic, not a basement. There's reasons that we don't like to hang out in the attic in the summer or in the basement in the winter because they're hot and cold. You want that consistent temperature, right? And then anything that you do, make sure it's reversible. So the lamination, probably not the best thing to do, but acid-free folders and boxes. But we really like to be a resource. And so if you have a question about how to take care of those important things in your house, give us a call. We're always happy to help.
A friend of ours had a 1912 Wurlitzer turntable, beautiful, absolutely, and he gave it to us, and actually had the records, big, thick, the 33 records there. And some of the I wish I could tell you guys some of the titles. Some of the titles were a little risque, I guess. Even in the 30s, things got pretty crazy in the 30s. But that's an item like that I want to take care of. But I think it's neat when I have people over, I can actually play it. I'm not going to, I know a lot of these car people say trailers are for horses. We got the antique car, drive the car. Don't just leave it on the thing, So, but that's a whole other story, right? The history of the cars here, we can get into that. But I want to talk about the junior docents. Again, I just love that the kids are, like you said, it's not rare, but it's wonderful when a young person finds interest in history. I know my sophomore high school teacher, Mr. Hill, got me involved with history, and I just loved it from that time on. Do you work with the junior docents? What's it like? And they do some stuff, don't they, Michelle? They actually did their own little, if I have this right, they did from the junior volunteers for the Smithsonian Museum, Main Street Coming Home Project.
Yeah.
Right, the Sycamore Pumpkin Festival, the 84 Olympic Torch, the Secretary of Navy drones,
Yeah.
and the North Grove one-room schoolhouse. I know all those places.
Yeah. So we, so this was before Caroline started, so I don't know if she knows
too much about
it. So we work with our younger middle school and high school students in a variety of different ways. One has been doing videos. That Coming Home Project with the Smithsonian has sunsetted, but the videos are still there on our website. But they researched a topic connected to our exhibit. They came up with interview questions. We found someone in the community to have them, for them to talk to, and then they had to edit it. And it was just so amazing watching these students work on these projects. One group of them, they were kind of COVID kids, and they really hadn't done a lot of work with people they weren't familiar with.
Right.
And they were so nervous beforehand, and then afterwards, like, oh my gosh, we did it! I was so nervous, and it was fun. I'm like, yes, you can do hard things, And then like, when do we get to do it again? And so that was with Cortland Elementary in the DeKalb School District. We also worked with Jefferson this year and doing a podcast. So if you're into podcasts, I don't know, it's collaboration. It's a food gathering around the table, and so that's our podcast. But then we did another podcast with students for the Americans' 250th anniversary of the United States, and this is going on for the next year. And we had them pick a couple topics that they thought would be important for people to know about living in 250 years after the Declaration of Independence, right? So they wanted to share slang, what some slang words were, and then they also just talked about what it was like to grow up. So
Give me one of the slang words.
And then, oh my goodness! So I know my son's gonna cringe.
Can we say it on the podcast? Or
yeah. So I know about the word cooked and skibbity and frizz, and they were hilarious.
Well, there's a magic too when you get a kid that age with an older person. There's just some kind of magic there.
There is, and one of the things that we keep telling the kids too is we as an organization are committed to having those missing voices in the collection, and that means so many different things, but that means talking to kids, right? I mean, we have adults that reminisce about growing up, but we don't have the voice of those fifth graders.
No.
Same thing with our high school students. Like, we have had them do things, but we don't have their voices, and that's really what we need to do better. And so with this next, the America's 250, that's going to be our next exhibit. So we're trying to work with filling in those gaps. We the people. Who are the people of DeKalb County?
We just had the YEP group on, the Youth Involved in Philanthropy, and boy, you talk about an impressive group of young people. Boy, I tell you, we don't have to worry about them. They're going to be in charge. Now, we're running out of time, but I want to mention, as promised, I want to mention Chief Chabonnet. I want to mention that because obviously it's a big concern right now about that land and it being turned back over to and the people that are living there and how that works. But you guys have a whole, on the DeKalbCountyHistory.org, a whole section on Chief Chabonnet, isn't it? I found it very interesting. I did a little he warned the settlers about the attack from Black Hawk, right? And
yes.
This was not a bad man. And then in 1848, they sold his property without him knowing it.
Right.
As far as we know.
Well, and the understanding is, I think all of us, if you've gone to another country, there's cultural differences. Right.
Yeah, I always want to read about World War II in the German history book. I would always love to know how they cover that.
Well, and that's kind of, the same thing here. There's cultural differences that he would move around, they'd stay in an area for a while and then they'd come back, they'd stay for another place. And then, so he apparently was gone for what the settlers thought was he abandoned the land.
Okay.
That's not how he thought about but there is a very different philosophy and understanding of land anyway. Native Americans traditionally don't believe that you own the land. So again, there's
a huge point right there,
yeah. So we can, there's dissertations written about this, but what we have in our collection are historical documents to tell this story. So we have a map from the 1840s that show the land that was dedicated to Chief Chabonnet and the Potawatomi Band Nation. With that, if you look at it, it's not a nice square. We like to, all the range and sections those are all nice squares. This is not, because it reflects a grove of trees. And he was a very intelligent person. And he, in his land settlement, wanted to have all of that access to those trees.
Okay.
And then we also know he knew how to use the court system because people went in and cut down like hundreds of trees. Like, how do you... He's not going to not notice that there are hundreds of trees missing. So he took them to court. We have those records. He went through the DeKalb County court system and he lost. Now, again, these are the historical documents.
Right.
I'm not going to interpret them right now,
no.
but
there's a history of it. You have that.
We have that history, and then we also have a story of someone that donated a beautiful beaded purse, and they said this was from Chief Chabonnet's daughter, and we're like, okay. I'm not an expert in Native American art, so we called the Field Museum, and they connected us with the Potawatomi Nation. And
was there a picture maybe with the purse, or how?
We have the actual purse.
Okay, but how do you prove that was his wife's purse?
Right. No, that's it. So we, the representatives from the Potawatomi Nation were, they are in the community on a regular basis,
right.
And so they came up and they looked at it, and they're like, absolutely, this is the right time. The art reflects some of the artwork of the Potawatomi. The timeline works out well. Chief Chabonnet had a daughter when he was considerably older, so that would work. And she sold it. Like, it was just a way that she was up visiting. We have a time when she was visiting in DeKalb County. Wow. They had a reunion. So like the timeline works because we also shared with them a basket that someone had also said was from a Potawatomi. And no, that is not the level of quality of the baskets that we would make. So the agreement we have, though, is we are temporary custodians because this connects to their culture and their story. So one of the ideas they had was to have a cultural center, and when they are ready, we will then give them this purse because it is part of their story.
Okay. Boy, it's like a CSI episode where you're tracking down the purse there.
Yep.
And again, we're almost out of time, but I want to mention that you talk about living history. I had the pleasure of talking to Virginia Sherrod, the 4th Ward Alderman in Sycamore,
Yep.
and I learned that she was the first African-American woman to be elected to the city council in Sycamore. She said there was a African-American gentleman in the 70s who was also elected, but it was fascinating talking to her, and I asked her about what life was like growing up in Sycamore, as you did, Caroline. And she talked about being part of Maryland's Majorettes and Drum Corps, and I had to interview Marilyn several times. And what a lady she was, boy. And that's neat to hear that her... Virginia was a member of the Maryland Majorettes way back then. It was so neat to hear that.
That is fabulous. I did not know that about Virginia. We've actually been working with her with our Arts in Action work where we have an exhibit opening at the end of June. It'll be up through the end of December where we did interview Virginia and she shared some stories. So it's what we've been doing the last few years to do a better job of including the Black and Latino stories. And with this exhibit, we've been including oral history quotes. It's called Shared Stories, and it's from voices of people in our community. And it connects to the main themes of fear, exclusion, hope, and community. And Virginia was a wonderful person to interview. She was. It was very hard to just pick one quote from our interview with her. Yes.
And before I let you go, Caroline, tell us about that. Do you think... I don't have the quote from Michelle, but you say basically you want to spark the interest of folks that live here in DeKalb County. And obviously you had your interest sparked in history. Do you think all of us have that in us, Caroline? It's just a matter of you guys maybe finding that right little thing that kind of sparks that interest.
Yeah, I think everyone can find something that they connect to. Even just coming and visiting our exhibits that we have at the museum, everyone can connect to something within that exhibit. Most likely they'll connect with a lot of things, but yeah, it really sparks an interest. It gets people talking. So we like to host lots of events as well. We hosted a storytelling event earlier in the month, and it was really great to see people have kind of a connection with each other and sharing these stories and seeing people really spark an interest in something someone says. But yeah, it's really, we really try to create a sense of community with the people that come and visit and the people that come to our programs, and we invite everyone to come join us. So,
well put.
Yeah.
Yeah, when I used to work in radio, we call it, I used to do the music programming, and you'd put the top 40 hits in there too, but you'd put an old song that people kind of remembered, and it would trigger that, and they said, they called it an aha song, because, I remember the song, when it would come, and you'd turn it up, and you'd play it there. So that's what you guys are doing at the museum, aren't you? You kind of clicking that little nerve inside of people. That's great. So let's write one last question. What are the hours? Because I had it written down right here. So let's see if we get it right. What are the hours there at the DeKalb County History Center?
Yeah, so we are there Tuesday through Friday at 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. And then on Saturdays we're there
12 to 3.
12 to 3.
And we can call at what number?
Yeah, we can call at 815-895 5762.
Well, I could have got the first part. But we should point out you do private groups. Cub Scouts or Girl Scouts can come and learn more about our history, right?
Absolutely. So if you want to have a group come and it's in the evening, just give us a call. We try to be as accommodating as we can. We also have rental space. So if you're looking for an event, you can also
I wasn't going to bring it up, but I found that very interesting. The rental space, you says that there's only one little kind of bylaw that you can't be. You have to be in agreement with what you guys want to do at the History Center. You don't want any political parties in there, you say, and you don't want anybody basically not doing what you guys are doing.
Oh, right. Well, and part of that is with our nonprofit status.
Okay.
This isn't glamorous, but we can't have any political affiliations or we can lose our nonprofit status.
All right.
So that's
like my wife, the Rotarian group, you said that's open for groups like that, right?
Yeah.
Come in and use that beautiful facility.
Absolutely.
And you got the great view of the lake right there.
We do. You can check the heron out and the turtles that apparently occasionally make an appearance.
So, Caroline, are things closed right now while all this is going on? Are we being open for the summer?
No, we are open for the summer. We are open. Our museum is open. We're hosting lots of groups this summer. We have our garden story time happening every fourth Friday in partnership with the Sycamore Library. So we welcome families in to join us for that. We're also hosting the Sycamore School District, their Oscar Summer Program group as well.
Okay.
So they're coming in once a week.
Tell us a story, Caroline. No, I'm kidding. I'd love to hear one of the stories.
I am not the person telling the stories, but yeah, we had a great turnout the first week that we did our story time, and we're very excited for what's to come with that. But then we also have our annual fundraiser, our Cocktails at the Crib fundraiser. That's happening July 19th from 4 to 7 p.m. and that's at the History Center. And we are very excited for that. There will be live music, drinks, food, the whole 9 yards. We'll have raffles there, and it's just a really great opportunity to explore the History Center and learn more about us, but also to see our construction as well. It'll be great to see the progress that is being made. We'll be pretty well into our construction at that point, and so it'll be really great to see the progress from where it started to where it is then. And so yeah, a lot of people are very excited, and we're excited to have people out for that.
And where does the term whole 9 yards come from? That's your final question on me. You know that one?
No, I don't. I say it all the time.
I believe it's a football term because it's 10 yards for a first down, so you get the whole 9 yards.
That would make sense, actually. My family, we are big football
All right, so
people.
Caroline mentioned, we're so glad that you're doing what you're doing, and so glad we have you back. You dipped that toe in the Kishwaukee River.
I know, right?
Michelle Donahoe, you not so much. No, Michelle and I go way back, back when you were the Sycamore History Museum, so it's amazing what you've done. It was neat to learn about your Stoic history back there. You're working at the Art Institute of Chicago. That is so cool. But come in the museum, obviously the two of you, it's your passion, so come and explore the history here of DeKalb County, right?
Absolutely. I say everything has history: sports, art, music. So if you say you don't like history, you haven't seen the right history. So come check us out. We even have food. Who doesn't like food, right? That's our exhibit right now. So.
A big thanks to Ethan Davis and our sponsors, and that's podcast number 15 with our friends from DeKalb County History Center. Titty Ryan Unleashed is brought to you by Scott Diamond, your State Farm Insurance Agent, Pizza Villa in DeKalb, Elder Care Services of DeKalb County, The Junction Eating Place in DeKalb, and my insurance guy, Mike DeVito in Sycamore.